No, I choose people who don't want to be written about on the whole, whose lives are shrouded in mystery and they want to hide their secrets. And I just love the king has been far too lenient with him. And that it's not just now this case.
Tom Bower just dropped a bombshell that has both Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew scrambling for cover. And I'm not talking about vague hints or careful wording. The biographer known as Britain's most feared chronicler of the rich and powerful just went on record with claims so explosive that within 2 hours, Meghan's team was reportedly making emergency calls, while Prince Andrew's camp went completely silent. And when you understand what Bower actually said and how he connected dots that nobody saw coming, you'll realize why the palace is in full damage control mode right now. It started the way these things always do, with a clip that seemed innocent enough. Bower sitting in a studio chair, that calculating look in his eyes, and then one sentence that set the entire internet on fire.
That there are two truths. The first truth is that the conversation, I'm told and I believe, was very early on in their relationship when Harry is bowled over.
He said that people would be shocked to learn how closely intertwined certain royal figures truly were, and who benefited from those connections. No names at first, no specifics, just enough to make every royal reporter in the world stop what they were doing and start digging. Within minutes, and I mean literally minutes, the speculation machine kicked into overdrive. Twitter, or X, whatever we're calling it now, exploded with theories. TikTok royal accounts started posting breakdown videos before the interview even finished airing.
The world about his relationship, and there was no compulsion for him to do it. And that not only...
And two names kept coming up over and over again like they were being pulled together by some invisible force: Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew. Now on the surface, these two couldn't be more different. Meghan, the American actress turned duchess, who left the royal family claiming mistreatment and media racism. Andrew, the disgraced prince who stepped back from royal duties after his connections to Jeffrey Epstein became public. They exist in completely different spheres of the royal drama universe. So why was Bower apparently linking them together? The theories came fast and furious. Some people thought Bower was about to expose a hidden rivalry between them for palace resources or public sympathy. Others believed it had to do with internal royal politics, specifically how the palace handled their respective scandals.
I was shocked at just how thin-skinned Harry is. You know, Meghan I almost understood. She's a Hollywood B-list to be charitable actress. She was a social climber. Her whole thing is about image, so I can see why she's so easy to upset.
But the theory that really took off, the one that got millions of shares and had armchair detectives working overtime, was that Bower had uncovered evidence of behind-the-scenes royal chaos that involved both of them in ways the palace had deliberately kept quiet. And here's where it gets interesting. Bower didn't deny any of it. He didn't clarify. He didn't backtrack. He just let the speculation grow, which, if you know anything about how Tom Bower operates, is exactly his style. The man has made a career out of writing unauthorized biographies of people who definitely don't want their stories told. He did it with Robert Maxwell, with Mohammed Al-Fayed, with Simon Cowell, and most recently with his book Revenge, which absolutely savaged Meghan and Harry's reputation in royal circles. By the next morning, the story had completely taken over every royal gossip forum in existence. Screenshots of the interview teaser had been reposted over 5 million times. Late-night hosts in America were making jokes about it. Even mainstream news outlets that usually stay away from royal tabloid drama were covering it because the reaction was just too big to ignore. But inside actual royal circles, according to sources, nobody was laughing. The palace snapped into what insiders described as quiet damage control mode the moment that clip dropped. There were reportedly tense meetings, emergency communication briefings, and a lot of hushed conversations in palace corridors. Because here's the thing, anytime Tom Bower speaks, people listen. And more importantly, the palace prepares for impact.
I do, and I think it has divided the nation and made us all, many of us, very unhappy on either side of the argument. I just found that Harry and Meghan, having said that they were setting up in California to spread wellness and love and sincerity, have done the exact opposite. They have done.
One royal aide allegedly said exactly that. The palace prepares for impact. Because Bower doesn't just throw out random speculation. He spends years researching, interviewing hundreds of sources, and building cases that are extremely difficult to legally challenge. He's been sued before, he's been threatened, and he's never backed down. What nobody expected, though, was how quickly things would escalate from there. Just 2 hours after the initial clip went viral, Bower made another move. He dropped an extended excerpt from his upcoming project during a live broadcast. And this time, he included one sentence that made every royal reporter freeze mid-tweet. He said, "It is astonishing how events thought to be disconnected were in truth shaped by the same hand." The same hand. That phrase sent people into absolute meltdown mode. Who was the same hand? What events was he referring to? Was he talking about palace manipulation, media strategy, legal maneuvering? And why did the timing feel so perfectly calculated, landing just as Meghan was dealing with her own PR turbulence and Andrew was facing renewed scrutiny over his past? Meghan's critics immediately decided the wording was clearly aimed at her. They pointed to her history in Hollywood, her documented ambition, her careful image management.
Series dedicated to dissecting the most riveting royal scandals in history. This week, I'm joined by Tom Bower, author of Revenge, Meghan, Harry, and the War Between the Windsors, the defining book on Meghan Markle.
Andrew's critics thought it had to be about him, specifically about how the palace allegedly protected him for years, despite knowing about his problematic associations. And then there was a third group, the people who were convinced Bower was hinting at something bigger, a bombshell that involved both of them in ways that would rewrite the entire narrative of recent royal history. The internet wasn't just on fire at this point, it was melting. Commentators were dissecting Bower's words syllable by syllable, looking for hidden meanings. Royal historians were pulling out old timelines, cross-referencing dates, trying to find connections between Meghan and Andrew that might explain what Bower was getting at. And here's where the story takes a turn that shows you just how serious this got.
It seemed to be a stereotype. I think that would now not occur. I think there were various things about her sexual life which I dropped out on the grounds of privacy law.
According to sources close to the situation, Meghan's team went into full crisis mode. Her staff was reportedly calling everyone who might know anything, absolutely terrified of what Bower might release next. They were trying to figure out what he knew, where he got his information, and most importantly, how bad it was going to be.
And in the Oprah Winfrey interviews and by Harry in the Apple interviews, can forgive him. I mean, he'd have to eat so much humble pie.
One PR source described the atmosphere in Meghan's camp as pure panic. They felt targeted, blindsided, and convinced that Bower had some kind of personal vendetta. And honestly, if you've followed Bower's coverage of Meghan over the years, that's not an unreasonable conclusion. The man has been absolutely relentless in his criticism of her, questioning her motives, her authenticity, and her version of events at basically every turn.
Of their experience.
I understand. Well, because I sift it through. I don't put in stuff which isn't true and can't be checked. And also, I had some admiration for Meghan. She succeeded quite well in her life and her ambitions.
Meanwhile, Prince Andrew's camp did something arguably more telling. They went completely silent. No statements, no leaks, no unnamed sources defending him to friendly reporters. Nothing. And in the royal world, silence like that is when you know the walls are really shaking. Because Andrew has been trying for years to quietly rehabilitate his image, to gradually ease back into some form of public life. The last thing he needed was Tom Bower dragging everything back into the spotlight with new interpretations or forgotten details. As the speculation reached peak insanity, media outlets started doing what they do best, digging through archives. They were pulling up every scrap of royal history that could possibly connect Meghan and Andrew. Some found overlapping charity events from years ago. Others discovered old palace memos that hinted at internal tensions. But nobody had anything concrete, nothing that actually matched the ominous tone of what Bower was suggesting. And then, the first leak happened. Someone from inside a production studio claimed that Bower's new material would shock both American and British audiences and would explain connections that nobody even realized existed. That leak spread like wildfire. Suddenly, every outlet had a headline, every commentator had a theory, every YouTuber had a 20-minute breakdown video ready to go. In Montecito, where Meghan and Harry live, sources say Meghan was pacing, phones ringing nonstop, lawyers on standby, PR advisors in full crisis mode. She felt targeted, according to one insider. She believed Bower was obsessed with her, and this latest move only confirmed it in her mind. At Royal Lodge, Andrew's residence, the mood was reportedly just as grim. Staffers whispered that he'd been warned the story could reopen wounds the family had desperately hoped were closed. Because even though Andrew's official duties ended years ago, the palace has been working overtime to keep his name out of headlines, to let the public slowly forget, to move on. And Bower was threatening to undo all of that work in one interview cycle, but nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared anyone for what Tom Bower did next. After watching the global hysteria unfold for hours, after seeing his name trend worldwide, after watching the palace scramble and the Sussex camp panic, he finally broke his silence with a new interview snippet released online. This time, he didn't speak in riddles. He looked directly at the camera, leaned forward, and said, "This is the chapter the palace hoped I would never write." The world gasped. Comment sections exploded. News anchors cut into regular programming. Because that one sentence confirmed what everyone had been suspecting. Bower wasn't just speculating or stirring the pot for attention. He had something real, something the palace actively didn't want out there. And at that moment, the question wasn't whether Meghan and Andrew were about to face a storm. It was how big the storm would be, how long it would last, and which of them would be hit hardest. Now here's what actually happened when Bower's full interview aired. He didn't drop a single new fact. Read that again. He didn't reveal any previously unknown information. What he did instead was something arguably more dangerous. He reframed existing information, connected dots that had been sitting in plain sight, and offered interpretations that made people see the whole royal drama through a completely different lens. Bower talked about reputation management, about how the palace handles scandal, about the strange ways that different royal crises seem to benefit from similar playbooks. He pointed out patterns in media strategy, in legal maneuvering, in how certain stories get buried while others get amplified, and he did it all with the kind of calm, calculated precision that makes him so dangerous to the powerful people he writes about. The reaction was instant and electric. Within minutes of the interview hitting airwaves, the internet erupted again. But this time, something else was buzzing beneath the surface. Fear. Not because Bower had exposed anything criminal. He hadn't. But because he'd touched a nerve the monarchy had been trying to keep calm for years. Sources close to Buckingham Palace insist the institution wasn't blindsided. They knew Bower's book was coming. They knew the press tour would be sharp. But what they didn't expect was how quickly the public would latch onto the most dramatic lines, how what was meant to be commentary on public behavior and media manipulation would mutate within hours into breathless conspiracy theories and endless debate videos. Inside Montecito, there was silence, then chaos. Insiders say Meghan was stunned, demanding to know how Bower had gotten hold of certain anecdotes, stories she believed had been tightly controlled or buried beneath legal walls. Harry, by contrast, was reportedly just devastated, caught between anger and exhaustion as he watched yet another wave of scrutiny crash toward their home. One insider shared that Harry knew this couldn't be stopped, but that didn't make it hurt any less. Because at this point, years after leaving the royal family, after the Oprah interview, after the Netflix documentary, after his memoir Spare, the couple is exhausted. They're tired of being dissected, analyzed, and attacked, and Bower's intervention felt like yet another battle they didn't choose but have to fight anyway. Across the Atlantic, the reaction in Andrew's corner was no calmer. Although Bower's commentary centered on reputation and optics, rather than any new wrongdoing, it was enough to reignite discussions the institution had been trying painfully to move past. Staffers locked down palace communication channels immediately. The usual no-comment posture was deployed within minutes, but the damage was done. Royal experts began dissecting Bower's claims with relentless precision. Live stream panels lit up YouTube. Longtime commentators who rarely agreed on anything suddenly found themselves speaking the same language. Tom Bower had hit a pressure point. Whether people liked Meghan, disliked Andrew, or felt exhausted by royal drama altogether, it didn't matter. Bower had opened a new chapter of debate, one fueled by uncomfortable intersections of celebrity, monarchy, fame, generational trauma, and public expectation. And the world could not look away. As the frenzy reached fever pitch, something much quieter began happening behind palace walls. Sources familiar with royal operations described it as the tightening of ropes before a storm. Meetings were held. Communications teams reviewed scripts. Senior advisors examined the timing, the context, the optics, always the optics. Because while Bower's revelations were technically nothing more than interpretation and commentary, the public reaction was now a beast of its own. And royal institutions understand better than anyone that perception often matters more than fact. Inside the media sphere, speculation turned into wildfire. Some argued Meghan would launch a fiery counter-narrative. Others predicted she'd remain silent, letting her allies defend her. Still others wondered whether Andrew would retreat deeper into obscurity or quietly encourage palace intermediaries to control the blowback. Bower himself seemed completely unfazed by the chaos. In a follow-up appearance, he doubled down with the same icy composure he's always been known for. He said, "My work speaks for itself. If certain people don't like the reflection they see, that's not my problem." That line was replayed thousands of times on TikTok within the hour. Then, something unexpected happened. A source inside Montecito claimed that Meghan had begun drafting a personal response. Not an official statement, not a legal threat, but a carefully curated message aimed at reclaiming the narrative. She wanted to frame Bower's commentary as obsession, as bias, as a decades-long pattern of targeting women who challenge traditional power structures. She wants to flip it, the insider said. Turn the scrutiny back on him. Whether that strategy would work is a different question entirely. While her team debated messaging, something far more damaging began bubbling online. Resurfaced clips, old footage, forgotten interviews, all tied to the themes Bower had raised. Suddenly, everything Meghan and Andrew had ever said in public was being reevaluated through a new lens. Video editors stitched together montages. Podcasters produced hour-long dissections. Royal Watch accounts racked up millions of views connecting dots that had never been dots to begin with. Interpretation became theory. Theory became narrative. Narrative became accepted truth. Even more surprising was the palace's reaction. Disciplined detachment. Not a word, not a whisper, not a hint of endorsement or denial. It was the oldest strategy in the royal playbook. Don't add oxygen to a fire. But given the scale of the inferno, its effectiveness seemed increasingly uncertain. Behind the scenes, tension reportedly escalated between the Sussex camp and the palace. One advisor allegedly described the atmosphere as radioactive. Another claimed the monarchy was done being caught in crossfire they didn't start. Whether these whispers were true or simply products of an overheated press cycle, the effect was the same. Speculation spiraled, and through it all, Bower remained unbothered, maybe even smug. One editor who spoke to him the day after the broadcast described him as calm, sipping tea, refusing to modify a single word he'd said. "He knows this storm," the editor said. "He's lived through dozens. What people forget is that he writes for the public record, not for royal approval. The institution has no power over him." Perhaps that's what frightened Meghan and Andrew most, because unlike tabloids or social media, Bower's work lives on bookshelves, in libraries, in documentary archives, in the cultural bloodstream. And now that his commentary had caught fire, it was clear the story was only beginning. So, what happens next? Well, that's what everyone's watching for. Meghan has options. She can stay silent and let it blow over, which some advisors are reportedly recommending. Or she can fight back, which is more her style. Andrew has fewer options. He's already sidelined, already discredited. Any response from him would likely just make things worse. The palace, meanwhile, will continue doing what it does best, saying nothing, controlling what it can behind the scenes, and hoping the public moves on to the next scandal. But here's the thing about Tom Bower, he doesn't go away. His books don't disappear, and the questions he raises tend to linger long after the initial frenzy dies down. What do you think? Is Bower doing important work holding powerful people accountable, or has he crossed a line into obsession? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on this story as it develops, hit that subscribe button because this is far from over.